I don't know how much the damage was in dollars. It has to be scoped, really, and it'd be just a wild guess.
But this cross girder is connected to the two main girders that run down the side.
Absolutely, it's a part of it.
It's a part of it.
Right.
And the plates that were, the part that was damaged where the cracks were, they are what? They are connected to that cross girder. Is that the idea?
The cracks are generally up in the superstructure area, up in here. On this model, the cracks are more in this area here. The glass was down here, was actually on the underside of the ship here.
Right.
Cracks here crack was right here.
Are there cracks in the hull also?
And those,
Only where there was damage in the hull, where the hull was blown upward. The bottom of the ship was blown upward as a result of the force of the mine.
How big a hole?
22 or 25 feet. It's a very, very large hole. And the deck is deformed and blown upward, so it's a little difficult to measure it precisely and exactly. It's a very grievous damage to the ship, causing the integrity of the hull. This, of course, being a cross section here, this part just doesn't exist. This part here that's been marked with the little boxes around it and so forth have deformities and so forth on it. This is intact here, but I would stress that this is the entire structure. This is what makes the ship strong.
Perspective is the 22 feet or so. Is this fore and aft? Is it symmetrical? Is it?
I'm presuming it's reasonably round. Reasonably round.
and we're with the cracks. If you're saying that if the seaman had acted quickly and welded plate over these cracks, then it was conceivable the stern of the ship just could have dropped off.
Well, it might have contributed to that. It's conceivable, yes. Anything is conceivable.
The ship hasn't been put in dry dock yet for us to be able to make definitive judgments on all these things. We got to offload our ammunition, so the spaces that we're talking about are still flooded. Divers have gone in, and it's too hazardous for them to go into that space because machinery is deranged. And so we've got to get her in dry dock, get the dock pumped down, and then get an engineering assessment, and a team is prepared to do that at the time. So we're really, that's right. So we're really giving you the best preliminary estimate that we can this time, and engineering judgments like that are going to have to wait on-scene surveys in other than afloat conditions.
Where was the ship's ordnance from all this, the ammo?
The nearest, or a magazine, exists in this area here, underneath this gun. See the gun right here? It's this gun. This gun right here. The magazine exists underneath the gun. Subsequently, the captain moved the ammunition because of the fire in this area here, moved the ammunition forward on the forecastle of the ship. We emptied this magazine here.
So was blown up if you hadn't done
A possibility of that. There's a fire in the vicinity of a magazine. That always is a possibility.
Did you say fire on its own, or did they take outside help, like the start?
I'm sorry?
Did the crew suppress the fire totally on its own, or did they get outside help, like as a start did?
The crew suppressed the fire entirely on their own. I believe they had no outside help.
They had people approaching the area, and they warned them off, telling them that they were in a minefield, which in itself seems to make a lot of sense. And so they dealt with the problem on their own and did not want to hazard other vessels until they were sure they were clear of the field.
This was a fuel and internal combustibles fire nowhere near the intensity of the rocket fuel fire at the start.
Nowhere near you're quite correct, yes.
Now, you had mentioned earlier that it took 5 hours to put out the fire. Were all these repairs going on while the firefighting effort was going on, or was the fire put out and then the repairs begun?
I don't know factually. I would assume the answer to that's yes. They were performing damage control, which is what those repairs are, from the start time, most likely.
So simultaneously, they were backing out of a minefield, controlling flooding, putting out a fire, moving magazines, and repairing the ship.
And telling people in Washington what had happened.
In what order? Not us, Admiral. We called.
Were the people in Washington talking back then?
I would make one correction on that. I believe they moved the ammo after they got out of the minefield, perhaps, but that was a subsequent effort. But you're quite right. There were a lot of things that were going on at once, and I emphasize that when you got a trained crew who knows what they're doing, you can rely on people to go do that sort of thing.
Do you have any sense of how long it was before the Wainwright could get close enough to provide pumping equipment or what other types of equipment that they loaned?
A few hours.
What type of equipment was brought from the Wainwright?
None.
Okay.
She asked how long the Wainwright would have taken to get there.
So nothing was ever,
yeah.
the Wainwright didn't contribute any.
Not as far as we know.
Once it's determined what sort of repairs have to be done, will there be makeshift repairs as were done on the Stark and have it towed home, or will you attempt to do the total job in Dubai?
We don't know, no. We just can't. We have to size the problem to understand.
Are the kind of facilities available there to do the kind of repair work that will be needed?
Well, I suspect that they are. They're also available in the U.S., too.
Admiral Mufson, I understand you're prepared to discuss the missiles that were fired in the Persian Gulf operation.
I don't know who told you that. Will you? I'd like to say a few words about the operation. You've been told a lot about it, and I will talk briefly about what we know about the missiles. There were a lot fired. You've had some detailed briefings on the occasions. I'd like to make a couple of points for the Navy. First, this was a joint operation. Although the Navy is the focus of, obviously, the action of the last several days, we had plenty of Air Force participation. The AWACS was a key player in providing surveillance, and in particular in the engagement with the Sabalan. We had Army helicopters providing surveillance and assisting us in the SAR, search and rescue operation for the Marine helicopter, which was lost. And of course we had Marines who were involved in the destruction of the Sasan oil platform and also were piloting the Cobra, which was lost. So it was a joint operation. Second point is, I want to share with the American people the pride that the leadership of the Navy has in the conduct of our officers and men on scene. You had naval aviators dodging enemy fire, delivering ordnance on target, putting enemy vessels on the bottom, returning and landing safely on carriers and telling about it. You had cruiser and destroyer skippers and crews evading incoming missiles, putting ordnance on target, putting the enemy on the bottom with no casualties. None of those things happens by accident. None is cheap. You have to have the proper numbers in the crews. They have to be properly trained. They have to be properly led. The ships have to be properly maintained. The aircraft have to be properly maintained. They have to have enough spare parts on board to keep them ready, halfway around the world, remote from any shore support, and of course the weapons that they fire.
Joins us live now from Newport with reaction from where that ship was based. Bill?
Well, Dave, the pier behind me is where the USS Roberts was berthed, where it, along with about 9 other ships, make up the group that is the Group 4 here in Newport. Newport, of course, is proud to have the Navy call this its home, but news of disaster at sea is nothing new to the citizens of Newport. The fortunes of the city of Newport have always been inextricably linked with the sea. The people here are proud of the city's ocean-going heritage. And when the USS Samuel Roberts was home ported here 2 years ago, the fast frigate equipped with guided missiles was warmly welcomed, in part because it was seen as a sign of the Navy's renewed commitment to its base and facilities here. But the ocean has always been a fickle benefactor. Tragedy, especially for fighting ships, is never far off.
The Newport naval community is keeping a close eye on the developments in the Persian Gulf, where locally based guided missile frigate Samuel B. Roberts apparently struck a mine this morning, sustaining hull damage and flooding an engine room.
I really feel bad for the people that have families, you know, the skies.
At this point, the 445-foot USS Roberts is afloat and still under its own power, although there is some flooding aboard. The half-dozen injured are apparently in no immediate danger. On this incident, Dave?
Bill, what sort of mood have you gotten from the people there? I mean, is this a shock? Is this, I mean, obviously there's some concern because of the possibility of some Newport sailors being injured.
Well, in fact, the men and women going on and off the base, on and off this pier here, seem to have been taking it fairly matter-of-factly. Not a great deal of concern at this point, although I'm sure there's concern for the individuals involved, Dave.
Okay, thank you very much. Bill Rapley reporting live tonight from Newport. Although the USS Roberts is a relatively new ship, the missile frigate does have a rich history. Named for a World War II Navy hero who died in battle, the Roberts was built at the Bath Iron Works in Maine during 1984. After a series of training missions, the ship was officially commissioned in April of 1986. The Roberts was welcomed to Newport in June of that year and has been based here in Rhode Island ever since. The ship, with over 200 sailors and 20 officers aboard, arrived in the Persian Gulf this February. Ironically, just 1 month ago, the Roberts commander, Captain Paul Rinn, sent a letter to the ship's builders. Rinn wrote, quote, "The ship is holding up fine. We are a calming influence in this troubled region." Well, today's explosion in the Persian Gulf is just the latest in the ongoing destruction in that troubled region. Now, you may recall Iraq attacked the naval frigate USS Stark last May while patrolling the Gulf. At that point, 37 seamen were killed in the attack. In light of that incident, the Navy dramatically increased its presence in the Gulf. A couple of months following the Stark attack, the president authorized the flagging of Kuwaiti oil tankers. Weeks following that move, the American oil tanker Bridgeton struck an Iranian mine as it left the Gulf. Last summer's events in the Persian Gulf touched off heated discussions in Washington as Congress debated implementing the War Powers Act. Now, joining us live from Washington right now are both Rhode Island Senators, Claiborne Pell and John Chafee. Senators, what kind of reaction are you getting in Washington to this today?
I think we're all distressed and shocked at it, not particularly surprised because the ship's in an area where this kind of activity is going on.
Same deep regrets over the injuries that came to the men, high hopes that they are not serious. And of course, this was the first casualty that has occurred since we undertook the escort of the Kuwaiti tankers about 10 months ago.
Senator Chafee, should we be there?
I believe we should be there. I think it's an extremely important area. It's important to the United States, and our absence would create a vacuum there. I came back from there recently, and everywhere I went in the region, the fact that the United States was in the Persian Gulf with our Navy was a reassuring factor to the nations.
Senator Pell,
and it's in our own best interest.
Senator Pell, should we be there?
Absolutely. We've been there for 40 years, and I think we should continue to have a presence there. Also, we should bear in mind this particular accident had no relationship to the escorting of the ships. It was a separate operation.
What about all the red tape that's been going on today? The families have had difficulty getting information. We have had very little information on this. Has your office had much inquiry from the people in Newport?
We have a certain amount, and obviously for those who are concerned, the relatives and the loved ones, there always appears to be delay, but the government's doing the best it can.
I'm sure that those aboard the ship, as they're wrestling with the problems that came with the explosion, trying to keep the ship afloat, and I don't know how damaged it was, that they are making every effort to both take care of the ship and to notify the relatives. But let me just say this, that I'm absolutely certain that those men are receiving the very best possible medical care that the United States Navy can provide.
All right, Senator Pell, you're on the Foreign Relations Committee. In fact, you're the ranking member on it. Are you able to get any information as a result of that you can pass along to the families?
I got no more inside information. Contacts come from the liaison people, from the government, the administration, and I think it's all out in the public domain.
Okay. Senators, thank you very much. We appreciate you joining us live tonight here on Channel 6. We'll watch further developments tonight as they become available. As if the explosion aboard the USS Roberts was not enough of a shock.
This is WLNE 6 News.
Two acts of terror overseas hit close to home tonight. Newport-based sailors were the intended victims. Good evening, everybody. I'm Dave Lehman, and Conway has the night off. New information continues to filter in at this hour about 2 explosions overseas that are touching lives right here in Rhode Island. In the Persian Gulf, the Newport-based USS Samuel Roberts was hit by a mine in the Persian Gulf near Bahrain about 10 o'clock this morning. The latest information from the Navy is that 10 sailors were hurt in the explosion, and the ship took on water afterwards. But so far, it's been able to make it safely to its dock. Then later the same day, sailors from the Newport-based USS Capodanno came under attack in Naples, Italy. A car bomb went off outside a USO club. 5 civilians were killed, but no one is claiming responsibility for that explosion. And finding out information continues to be a real problem tonight in the Persian Gulf. Now, we are told by sources that we talked to tonight in Bahrain, as well as here in the United States, that the USS Roberts arrived in Bahrain just a few hours ago. There, the 3 seriously injured were taken to a local hospital where they were being treated for burns. 7 other injured crewmen were transported to another ship for care, but they are not as seriously hurt. By the way, the USS Roberts was on a peacekeeping mission in the Gulf to help keep the American presence there. A reporter on the scene tells us that it is believed that the mine that the Roberts hit today was not a new mine, but was probably left over from previous minings of the Gulf of Iran. The names of the injured sailors are not being released at this hour, pending notification of their families. Well, despite the new violence in the Gulf, both Rhode Island senators are continuing their support tonight for our sailors being there in the first place. Earlier tonight, I spoke live with Senator Claiborne Pell and Senator John Chafee.
I came back from there recently, and everywhere I went in the region, the fact that the United States was in the Persian Gulf with our Navy was a reassuring factor to the nations. And it's in our own best interest.
Senator Pell, should we be there?
Absolutely. We've been there for 40 years, and I think we should continue to have a presence there. Also, we should bear in mind this particular accident had no relationship to the escorting of the ships. It was a separate operation.
Now, the latest from Italy. All naval personnel from 3 U.S. ships stationed in Naples have been accounted for tonight. 2 crew members from the USS Capodanno are being treated at naval hospitals in Naples. Italian police suspect the bomb was in a parked car just outside the USO club in Naples. 5 people were killed in the explosion, and nearly 20 others were injured.
Right now, it's just some type of a blast. I don't know. What do you remember? Getting knocked on my ass.
Today is the 2nd anniversary of the U.S. attack on Libya. Now, you may recall that Libya claimed responsibility for the 1986 bombing of a U.S. discotheque in Berlin, Germany. But Libya, or no other country so far, has claimed responsibility for today's attack. Waiting for word about the condition of the Capodanno crew members is really agonizing for their family and friends back here at home. We've just gotten 3 identifications. In the Capodanno situation in Naples, Craig Lee Trent, an economics expert from Maryland, was also involved. Charles F. Roberts from East St. Louis, Illinois, also injured. And Stanley Lawson, Jr. of Maumee, Ohio. Again, another person who is injured, but so far at this point, we don't have any word on their conditions. This, again, just in. Now, tonight, Channel 6 News reporter Ann Doherty spoke with a New Bedford woman who is not going to rest easy until she knows that her boyfriend is not hurt in all this.
Television news was the only source of information about the Naples bombing that Michelle Walton had tonight. Her boyfriend, David Nasambini, is an engineer on the Capodanno.
I just feel a little kind of sick, I guess, and shock and hoping that he's okay. It's mainly all I want to know is if he's all right.
Michelle said David had never before been assigned to the Capodanno.
Just wanted to go and see part of the world, and it was just a 6-month duty, and he went.
Coming from a family of Navy men herself, Michelle can understand that urge.
I mean, you want to do it, you know, go into service to help your country, but I guess you never think that you're going to be at the wrong place at the wrong time either, so.
But today's bombing has put a fear in her about the next time David goes out on duty.
You just don't know. So I'm sure they're just terrorists everywhere.
Ann Doherty, Channel 6 News in New Bedford.
Now, for those of you who do have loved ones involved in either the USS Roberts explosion or the bombing in Naples, here are some telephone numbers we'll put up for you so you can call to get some information, at least the information that would be available. First, for the USS Roberts, you can call 1-800 800-368-3202. And for the USS Capodanno incident, you can call 1-800-523-2975. And again, they're 800 numbers, so there's no charge for that call.
The warship was damaged by an underwater explosion, possibly from an Iranian mine. The frigate Samuel B. Roberts had just finished escorting a convoy of U.S.-flagged Kuwaiti tankers through the Gulf. Arab gunmen released one more hostage today from that hijacked Kuwaiti airliner now in Algeria.
Hello again. At least 10 sailors are injured following an underwater explosion that damaged a Newport-based naval frigate. There are reports that the USS Samuel B. Roberts hit an underwater mine in the Persian Gulf, but Pentagon sources will not confirm the mine hit. Many of the more than 200 men on board are believed to be from Newport. Their injuries are not considered life-threatening. Pentagon spokesman Dan Howard says the ship is not in danger of sinking.
It caused flooding in the engine room and some hull damage. The flooding is under control, and the ship is in the process of pumping out the water. It's operating under auxiliary power. There were no fatalities.
Most of the injured were flown to the USS San Jose. The explosion occurred just after 10 this morning, about 7 miles east of Bahrain. The Roberts left Newport in January and went online in the Gulf in mid-February. Newswatch 10 reporter Sylvia Gambardella has been in Newport all day covering this. Let's go to her live now. Sylvia?
Patrice, we've been here since 1 o'clock, and no one here has been talking, neither the families of those on board nor Navy officers here. The Defense Department has put out the word not to talk to the press, and so this is all we know right now. The USS Samuel Roberts left Newport on January 11th. It was headed for a 6-month tour of the Persian Gulf. In mid-February, it joined an 18-ship U.S. fleet to escort Kuwaiti tankers through the shipping routes filled with mines in the Gulf. On the Navy base today, dozens of Navy wives congregated at the home of Mary Perez. She's acting as an ombudsman between the wives and Navy officials. She lives on the naval base. They waited there to get word on the ship's status. All we know at this point about officers on board is 10 have been injured, as you said, 1 with second-degree burns, 6 with slight burns, 1 with a hernia, and 2 with minor back injuries. They have been transported to the USS San Jose, as you said. We'll have more on this at 6 o'clock tonight, Patrice.
Sylvia, I understand that the wives were planning a celebration tomorrow to mark the halfway point of the ship's duty. What's going to happen now?
At this point, it seems to be that celebration is off. In fact, not only was there supposed to be a celebration here, but there's supposed to be one on the ship. But as far as we know, that's been canceled.
Okay, thank you, Sylvia. Meanwhile, another Navy frigate based in Newport is docked in Naples, Italy, not far from where a bomb exploded in a U.S. servicemen's club. In fact, at least 4 men from the USS Capodanno were injured in the explosion. The blast was caused by a car bomb. There are reports that as many as 5 people are dead. One of those is confirmed to be a U.S. sailor. But it's not clear if he is from the Capodanno or one of the other ships in the area. Another 15 people were injured in the blast. 4 of those are confirmed as being from the Capodanno. We'll have details on this story tonight at 6. And the Navy has set up a toll-free number to help family members get information about servicemen on both the USS Roberts and the USS Capodanno. That number is 1-800-368-3202. In other news, when